The Philadelphia Eagles have the intent to release six-time Pro Bowler Darius Slay, the cornerback, the all-pro cornerback, probably you can count on one hand the best defensive backs in the league over the last decade. Yeah. Darius Slay, in my opinion, is on that list. A lot of people here in Detroit excited about that prospect. Braylon Edwards, what say you?
Before I get too excited, I want to see what happens in the Eagles because something came out that they're releasing him to bring him back, potentially at a lower cost. That's a potential, but just Darius Slay. Darius Slay definitely in the last 10 years or so, he's made a name for himself, started here in Detroit, and he continued that name in Philly. Last year, his I want to say his QB efficiency rating when they were going his way, it was 80%. The year before that, it was 95%.
He led the team last year in defense.
With 80%, though.
Pretty good.
I'm just looking at it in terms of 80% is a big drop-off from 95 and 91 the year before, especially for how good that defensive line is. But if you're talking the tune of something that makes sense, this is a guy that can do something for you here in Detroit, but how good is your defensive line going to be? There would be my question about Darius Slay. What are you preparing to do on that defensive line? That'll be if I'm excited to bring in a Darius Slay or not.
He wants to play one more year.
If you're not going to revamp the defensive line like we want you to, and you're just going to go out there, I'd rather Carlton Davis the second, respectfully, at this particular juncture.
Yep, Carlton's coming off that broken jaw, as you remember. He's been terrific for us for last year when they signed him and they made that trade with the Tampa Bay Bucks. He is more expensive than Darius Slay. Darius Slay will come here on a one-year deal. His cap hit was just about $4 million with the Eagles. So I think he'll be that or less to come here for 1 year and play for the Lions. He said he wants to play for either one more year with the Eagles, and they might re-sign him again at a lower rate, or he would like to finish his career here in Detroit, which he calls his second home. Yeah. He was on just a couple of weeks ago with the St. Brown brothers. He made it clear. Two teams. He wants to play one more year. If the Eagles won't have him, he'd love to come to Detroit and finish up here.
I want to build some consistency. I think what the Lions have done on the defensive side of the ball for the last 4 years, man, just be 5, is plug and play. Here's a player this year. Here's another player this year. Here's a safety for this season. No. I don't want to have a Darius Slay for 1 year. This is a year where I want some consistency. I want us to be there in the background as well. I would prefer to sign somebody from a longer term, more Carlton Davis II. I keep bringing up that name. I like what he was for the Lions last year. His jaw got injured at the end of the season. He'll be perfectly fine for this season coming up. A 1 year deal, I just don't know.
You have to look at it. A 1 year deal with him, maybe they still re-sign Carlton Davis. And then you have to look at the kids they drafted. They drafted Terry and Arnold, and they drafted Enos Rakestraw. We haven't known what about Rakestraw. We have no idea what he can do. But he was a second-round pick. You know what the Eagles did? They went out and got Quinyon Mitchell, and they got Cooper DeJean. So they got their guys. Did the Lions get their guys? That's the question. And we're going to have to figure it out. That's up to Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell.
For as unpopular as this may be in the city of Detroit, I am a hard no on re-signing Darius Slay. A hard no. Last year in 2024, there were 0 starting cornerbacks in the NFL over the age of 34. Darius Slay will be 35 next season. The average age of a starting defensive back in the NFL is 25.9 years old. Ooh. Nearly 10 years younger than what Darius Slay would be. 8.5% of the league's starting cornerbacks last year were 30 or older, from 30 to 34. And it was just Slay and Stephon Gilmore, 34 years of age.
We wanted him last year, too, remember?
Absolutely. So those were the two old guys. No, not one player in the league, 35 or older, was a starter in the NFL last year at the defensive back position. It's a young man's game. That is about speed. That is about agility. And those two areas, for the most part, Braylon, are for young people. And God love Darius. I love Darius. I love that he loves Detroit.
Wish we never lost him.
But that ship has sailed, in my opinion.
Yeah, look, the running back position and the DB position are two of those positions where it disappears fast, Ryan. At the running back position, you'll blink, and a guy, look at Todd Gurley. You take those hits over time, you blink, and it disappears. On the DB, it's the same. After a while, what makes you great as a DB, the quick tips, to be able to get in and out of breaks with the wide receiver, the ability to run 4-3 or 4-4, that disappears. Those hips, they get a little slower. That speed, it gets a little slower. And I think that's where Darius Slay is. It's no secret why his usage rates went down to 80% last year in terms of when he was covering guys. It's because the guy's a little older. Like you said, it gets faster and faster and faster. You're watching guys, and especially the receivers today, the drills and the skills that they have, these guys can play, man.
No interceptions last year either.
100%. You know, he's now playing from a space of being behind. He's behind. He's not ahead of the play anymore. When you're Darius Slay and you're younger, and now you can go into your film study and your 4-4, you watch that, you can anticipate, you can jump. Now you get a little slower. You know, now that anticipation isn't there. Now guys are beating you to the spot. So you make a valid point in terms of the age of the starting defensive the DBs in the league right now. But it just you see what you saw out of him last year. You know, it would be tough to put him out there, man. You need somebody that's younger in that spot, in my opinion.
Super Bowl champs. I think they know what they're doing, right? They've been to 3 Super Bowls in the last decade. They've won 2 of them. When Philly says you're done, I'm going to have to agree with them. And I think they're saving up money for you know what. I think they're building up. They're building up their money. We've said it last week. They're ready to make a big splash. And I won't even put his name out there yet. I'll let you, Rye, but
Go for it.
they're saving up for Myles Garrett.
Everybody knows it.
Yeah,
Everybody knows it.
saving up for Myles Garrett.
It's not even a secret.
Diana Rossini reported today, and you can read it, Rye. I
Yep.
gave it to you. Basically, it's the Eagles and the Bills, and what the Eagles can do is Josh Sweat is available. You know, there's a free agent. They've got guys that aren't going to come back.
No doubt, because that one player, Myles Garrett, that we've been talking about for so long, makes everybody else around him better. You don't need Josh Sweat if you've got Myles Garrett and Jalen Carter. Yeah. Sources tell Diana Rossini from The Athletic that the Eagles have real interest in trading for Garrett. One of her sources is an NFL GM. ESPN's Dan Graziano expects Philadelphia and Buffalo to pursue Garrett aggressively. The Eagles could opt to pay Garrett around $20 million per season left on his contract over impending free agent pass rusher Josh Sweat, projected to get around $20 million per year himself. This assumes that Garrett is willing to play on his current deal. Rossini believes the acquisition of Garrett would probably prevent the Eagles from keeping their top free agents like Zach Bond, Milton Williams, and right tackle Mekhi Becton. Now, Milton Williams would most likely be gone. He's the number 1 defensive lineman on the free agent market, Milton Williams. Zach Bond, they love Bond. He's their Alex Anzalone, better than Anzalone, but he is the straw that stirs the drink there, Braylon. But again, could Garrett replace Milton Williams and Josh Sweat? And I say yes, he can.
Pete, I appreciate you for always giving me my credit. When did I say this? 2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago.
I said Milton Williams' contract is up. They'll get rid of him. They'll get rid of Darius Slay. They'll get rid of BG, who's retiring anyway. It's all a move to get you know who. Like 100%. And I think they can make it work with Bond. And if they don't, oh, well. He didn't even play on the team last year. He was a free agent pickup for 1 year, had a hell of a year. They'll replace him. Because keep in mind, N'Kobe Dean is coming back, who didn't even play at the end of the year. So
he led him in tackles.
100%. Right. If they get Myles Garrett, they don't need Zach Bond. They don't need a Milton Williams.
That's right.
Like, they know what Myles Garrett represents to their franchise and to the next move. They know what it represents for their defense. They get a Myles Garrett, this defense comes already scarier than they are, and they also want to play keep away. It's something that you always talked about. So if I'm Myles Garrett, I guess it doesn't matter. But if I'm Myles Garrett, I like Philadelphia Eagles more than I like Buffalo. I just don't like what Buffalo is doing. I don't like where Buffalo is, and I don't like, if I'm him, do they finish in the playoffs? You have a track record with Philadelphia Eagles, been there twice in the last 4 years, so that's where I want to go.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible. 3 times really in the last 8 years, and they've done that.
And
with
2 of them.
And they've done that with different coaches and different quarterbacks, and that talks about organizational strength, something that he did not come from in Cleveland. Philadelphia is a real legitimate landing spot for Myles Garrett. And then you look at the Washington Commanders, who just acquired Deebo Samuel over the weekend.
Right.
That's a steal for a 5th-round pick.
Absolute steal for him. Deebo is now in a place that he is going to be not the man, because I think Terry McLaurin is the man there, but Debo is in a real nice spot with a great quarterback, with an up-and-coming team, with a great head coach, and seemingly one of the, in 1 year, this incredible turnaround as far as an organization. This is a huge get for Washington.
Yeah.
This makes them very dangerous. And if you're Philadelphia, if you're Detroit, I would not, under any circumstance, let Myles Garrett go to the Washington Commanders.
Look how crazy the situation is. Like, just think about the NFC East for a second. Look at what Dallas Cowboys were 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 4 years ago. They were the team. They were a team that probably would eventually figure it out. 13 wins. They got the coach. They got the players. They got this. They got third. The Washington Commanders, they don't even have a name. Now look at it. The Dallas Cowboys are a dumpster fire. Meanwhile, the Washington Commanders are cooking with grease. They got a GM that they converted from a basketball GM. Seems like he's figuring out. I can't think of his name. It escapes me right now. But they know they struck when the iron's hot. They drafted the quarterback, and they're making moves from there. They picked up Deebo Samuel. You mix him in with that offense of Jaden Daniels, very similar to what Malik Neighbors was doing when he was in LSU. Cliff Kingsbury is going to have a field day with Deebo Samuel. They're playing for now. I don't know what the hell Dallas is doing. I don't know what the hell some other teams are doing. Hint, hint. Some teams are playing for right now. They want to win now. The Commanders are no different than the Eagles.
Adam Peters.
My man, 100%.
And just with Debo, too, Bray, you know as well as anybody, when you feel like a team doesn't want you anymore, in all last year, it felt like San Francisco was done with Debo Samuel. You know what kind of effort you put in for a team that doesn't want you anymore, and you know what kind of rejuvenation you have when you know a team goes out and says, this is the missing piece to our offense. This is something we want. This is something we can work with. And I feel like Washington is giving Debo that. Now, he might be fat. That might be AI, I see.
Right.
But I guarantee you that Debo Samuel is going to come to camp in shape and ready to go.
They have a different element that they're about to offer Debo Samuel that they've already shown. Mazzy, you know where I'm going with this. They got Magic Johnson. They have Magic Johnson. So whatever happened with Debo Samuel at the end of the 49ers run, because he did a lot for that team. They allowed him to play running back and quarterback and direct snap and all these things. He did a lot for that squad. It didn't work out at the end. But Magic is going to bring him in. You saw Magic in the locker room after they beat the Lions, talk to every player and bring those guys in. You start to feel like a team bunk sway. That's what he's going to tell Debo. Like, look, Debo, you come over here. You don't have to do all that extra stuff if you don't want to. We got Jaden Daniels. It's his show. We got Scary Terry. We got a nice spot for you. There's going to be a lot that you can do. We're going to use you like a Swiss Army knife, but to what you want to do. He's going to re-buy into a culture. He's excited. Like, that's – Commanders have something, and I think that's how they're going to pull Debo and other players in. Magic Johnson. You say what you want to.
Lions have some decisions to make up.
Yeah.
They're coming up. They've got players that are owed bonuses. One of them is Darius Smith. If they keep Darius Smith past March 30th, his bonus kicks in from the Cleveland Browns. I read today that, well, I don't even have to read. I mean, you can read the tea leaves. Do you think they're going to keep Darius Smith? Do I like him? I really do. I think he's an upbeat guy. I think he's still got some tread on the tires. Sure, he's in his 30s right now. But I would like to keep him, but they probably won't because of the money. So what do? They've got contracts coming up. They've got to pay people. It just doesn't seem to me that they're going to go after this Myles Garrett trade. But on the other hand, the word on the street, Ryan, you can bring it up. They were after him at the trade deadline. Probably the team that was after him the most was the Detroit Lions.
Yeah, that's what one of the ESPN First Take reporters were saying was that Myles Garrett, the Lions were the most aggressive team. This is by, what's her name? Kimberly Martin. The Lions were the most aggressive team that pursued pass rusher Myles Garrett at the trade deadline and are in touch Cleveland once again about a potential trade. You love to see it. You cannot force a trade, meaning Brad Holmes can't make Cleveland send Myles Garrett here. But if this reporting is accurate, if you believe Kimberly Martin's reporting, I love that Brad Holmes is trying to be proactive about this and not taking a sideline pass and sitting this one out and waiting to see what everybody else does.
They went the secondary market with Darius.
This isn't the way he does business. This much, and I told you, don't believe what Brad Holmes is saying at the combine. don't believe. He is playing chess and everybody else is playing checkers when it comes to this stuff. He knows what he's doing. He's not going to come out and say, yeah, we got to go get this expensive player from Cleveland, the number one defensive player on the market. We got to go get him. He's not going to say that in public. He's going to say we don't need him and we can win with our guys. It's just not going to negotiate through the media.
Yeah, for all you individuals on the chat and elsewhere that said, oh, my God, Myles Garrett's available. Would you have said that if he wasn't available? Why you got to go get Myles Garrett? You don't believe in the team. Your own GM tried to get Myles Garrett. Your own GM, who all you guys in the chat say, let Brad cook, let Brad cook. Brad tried to cook Myles Garrett here. Yeah. It lets you know that we're on to the right track. So when you talk about keeping Darius, Brad Holmes knows that it's going to be iffy with number 97 coming back off that compound fracture. You want to secure the edge on one side. That's why he was doing with Myles Garrett. So once again, do the Lions have enough if they sign the players that played last year and all that? I think so. But Brad doesn't want to think so. They want to know so, is what everyone in this studio has been saying. You want to know so. The Commanders want to know that they can contend with the Eagles. The Eagles want to know that they got their foot on the gas in the NFC. Everybody's trying to know because Myles Garrett is that good, or a rush in is that good.
And when you're trying to get a guy like Garrett, or when you're trying to get one of these upper echelon.
So that means, does that mean they don't believe in Davenport as well as
Darius Smith?
I don't. You cannot believe in.
They're not counting on
Davenport. Hasn't played in 2 years, but that's why you can't just go get Darius Slay. Like, let's just say Slay's on the market. Okay, let's just say, what's he gonna get? $3-4 million a year. Yeah. That's a lot of money when you're talking about a cap.
Yeah.
When you were, because Tim Patrick is going to cost about $4 million. And you're really, towing the line whether or not you're going to sign Tim Patrick. So I think a guy like Tim Patrick is almost a necessity. When you look at who the Lions have on their roster right now, zero big target wide receivers. Zero. Tim Patrick should be a priority.
He better be. He's a non-negotiable. You see what he does in the blocking game?
Yes.
Like, how many extra yards did we see Jahmyr Gibbs and Dave Montgomery get because of him caring about the run game? And then, too, like you said, he's a big-body wide receiver. He makes the third down catch over the middle of the field. He provides a big body when you're in the fringe, which is when you're on the 9 to 10-yard line. He's running that inseam on the post side. I like what he was able to do. You take him out of that squad, J-Mo and Amon-Ra is not enough. I don't care how good you believe Amon-Ra is, and I don't care how fast J-Mo is. It's not enough if you don't have Tim Patrick. He's a non-negotiable for me.
Yeah, what's a guy like Slay going to cost? What's a guy like Tim Patrick is going to cost? This isn't baseball or basketball where everybody gets a $100 million deal. I mean, some of these deals, even when David Montgomery, before the extension, signed $6 million a year? I think he got 3 years, $18 million. You're like $6 million a year for that running back. That's what it costs in the NFL to get a player of that caliber. So, I mean, Tim Patrick, $2-3 million, maybe $4, maybe on the high end.
Only a few guys make the real money.
Yeah, it just doesn't sound like a lot of money, and it's not. But it is when it comes to a cap. It is trying to get